If you guys remember, we got the Screamer turbocharger set up on here. We've got our new 3-piece manifold set up on here. Original video was getting this new VP44 on, and now, yes, I've been kind of getting started on this. We have a fresh set of Cummins connector tubes going in. A lot of times I get asked this quite a bit. Do we need to change them? I don't think you need to change them on every one, but I always tell people if the ends of these look good, and I'll get them opened up here in a little bit, if the ends look good, they don't look damaged, I would say if you're really strapped for cash, you don't have to, but it's a recommendation. And then here's what we're working on today. We've got a set of BD 75 horse injectors. And man, I can't wait to get these in here. So with those injectors, we will have a set of 75 horsepower injectors, a new hot rod VP44, a brand new AirDog fuel system with a sump back there on the tank, matched with this Screamer turbo. With all of this together, I mean, one could say you were almost doubling our power. We won't know that for sure because we didn't dyno it prior, but this thing is going to significantly be more powerful. And you could put a huge turbo on there, but you're not going to see just substantial gains right off the rip unless you've got tuning to boot and something that will really drive it. But we do have, thanks to Edge, we do have our tuner that's going to be going on there, but I kind of want to mess with that last. With this pump, the injectors that are going to go in here and the turbocharger, I'm losing track of what I'm saying here. You need the fire in the hole. That's what you're going to feel up there. You need the fuel. You need that heat to drive this turbo. So with these 75 horse injectors, this is going to be a significant upgrade over what was there. So I'm really, really excited to get these injectors in here, and not only to make it just more powerful and feel more fun to drive, but then to drive this Screamer. Like, I've drove this truck so much with the stock one on it. I can't wait to see how this one goes. But I've actually, I've got 2 new clamps to go here to make sure we don't have any boost leaks. Yeah, so we're moving on to the actual injector install. It's pretty straightforward. The boost elbow needs to come off, your grid heater needs to come off. I've already got that off here. Your accelerator pedal position sensor that was mounted here, I've got it folded back. So realistically, all that needs to happen is you take your fuel lines off here at the cylinder head, all 6 of them, and then there's one way back there, which is an absolute nightmare to get to, which is another reason why I love using line wrenches. It makes life so much easier. Still not super easy, but easier. Get the lines off at the head. Then we're going to take the lines off down here. Oops, sorry. Let me figure out what I'm doing here. Get the lines off down here at the bottom of the pump, and then all of these lines will come off as an assembly. You don't ever want to take these little blue deals off because it just turns into a mess and you got to try to figure out how it goes. But we're going to get the lines off. Once the lines are off, we'll peel this valve cover up, back, and out of there, and that will expose our intake and exhaust rockers all the way back. Once we get to that point, we will check back in, and yeah, like I said, we've got the intake elbow off here. We got our grid here. We haven't really done a whole lot, but we're getting closer. Really, like I said, super duper pumped. Can't wait to see what this thing does. The fuel lines are completely off at the cylinder head. They are completely off at the pump. Now we are ready to go ahead and pull the rest of these out for the valve cover. We'll get this valve cover off, and we'll move on to the next step. That process is always a pain. Like I said earlier, having a line wrench is great, but getting to these hold downs, getting all these lines loose is a real pain. But got it done, moving on to the next step. Okay, as you can see, we've got our new crossover tubes laid out here on the table. Like I mentioned earlier, this isn't absolutely mission critical to replace them, but these are you know, I don't see any visible damage on them, but this thing's been sitting for so long that I don't really want to risk it. You know, like I said, new air dog, new injectors, new VP44. Why not just do all of it? You know what I mean? So we've got a brand new set of Cummins, Bosch crossover tubes, and this is, you know, your injection line comes up, goes in through here, and this is what feeds the injector. And yeah, obviously a critical component. Want to make sure that there's no visible damage, everything's good and clean. And then also too, they came with new O-rings, so we're going to go ahead and get these O-rings put. Oh, already did that one. We're going to go ahead and put all of the new fresh O-rings on here, just so we know for sure that everything is good before it goes back together. And then once we get these set up and ready, we're ready to start removing the old injectors. There's just a couple of 8mm hold down bolts that hold those injectors in. And then what we'll actually be able to do is we'll be able to use some of our old hardware that will go down to the top of the injector. And they should just pop right out. It's an O-ring fit. So let's start removing. I have our new injector right here. I'm going to be doing these one at a time. So I'm going to put one injector in the cylinder head. Well, I'm going to remove one injector out of the cylinder head. And then once I get it out of the cylinder head, here, I'll just come over here. There is hold downs that go here and then another one here. You loosen one of those up and that whole hold down and this bolt will slide out from underneath this one, so you don't actually have to take this one off. And then coincidentally enough, the threads on the injectors are the same as the valve cover bolts. So I'm going to take one of our valve cover bolts, thread it down in here, put a slight amount of pressure on it and pop that up. We'll get that injector out and then we're ready to put the other one in. Okay, we've got one of our stock injectors completely out. Like I said, took one of our valve cover bolts, threaded it into the top. You can see it is threaded. Thread it down into the old one. Just honestly, I just grabbed it with my hand and just kind of yanked on it, and it came out. As you can see, these are pretty old, right? Got quite a bit of miles on them. Got quite a bit of carbon buildup on the end. And then if you take a look at our new one, let's pull our tip off here. You can see the holes are actually a little bit bigger, and obviously this is clean. Something that you definitely need to pay attention to is make sure that this copper washer comes off, because if this is still down in the cylinder head and you double stack it, you're going to have issues. Not to mention, I think that the thickness of this is probably going to throw off where your connector tube goes in, you know, and it's going to make it too high or too low. So another thing you want to be mindful of is make sure you get that copper washer on there, but when you put the injector in, make sure that this hole here for your crossover tube to come in is facing the right direction. It will go the wrong way, and then what's going to happen is you're not going to realize it, and you're going to jam this new crossover tube into a wall and you're going to damage it, right? So be mindful of that. So let's get this copper washer put back on, and we'll get number one in. Okay, as you can see, the valve cover and the lines are back on. Had a little issue with the mic, so hopefully you can hear me okay. I'll speak a little bit louder. But we've got the injectors in. Like I said, we use one of our valve cover bolts to remove all the old injectors. The old injectors are pretty roached, but we've got them out. We've got the new ones in. We've got our new crossover tubes in. The valve cover is on. Fuel supply lines coming from the VP44 are on. Pardon the mess. This is a judgment-free zone. Yeah, so basically all I'm gonna have to do is get our intake elbow put on. We're ready to prime the system and fire this thing off. So 2 hours is what it calls for. I've been taking my time. I would say I would say 2 hours is probably accurate, but man, the biggest thing I would really pay attention to is the copper washers going on that. I was having some issues with the copper washers were trying to fall off down in there, so I dabbed a little oil around the edge of the injector there, pressed them on so they would stay on, and didn't have any issues. They just press on super duper easy. Crossover tubes as well, they just go in these holes here and just kind of on it, just real lightly, and they go straight in. We're making sure that our crossover tube holes are aligned the correct way. Yeah, things went well. I'm excited to have 75 horse injectors in this truck, and I've got a lot of high expectations. All right, got it pushed out here. That way if something bad happens, catches on fire or something crazy, it doesn't happen in the actual garage. I got the lines. I got the lines. Got some fuel spitting out of them. It is probably going to start. Here we go. With ease. With ease. Well, it runs great. We took it out. Everything seems to be okay. And then we realized there was some smoking going on. Looks like our oil drain has got an oil leak. Pretty good one too. So I'm gonna let this thing cool off, and then try making sure that that tube that runs off the turbo down to the block is still just gonna have to tighten it up. It must not be tight enough. We'll get it tightened up, and then we'll try this again. The brakes are, feels like the brakes are dragging, but as you can imagine, it's sat here for so long. It's got stuff lodged in the wheels, you know, and it's just as you can imagine. So we will let this thing cool off, try to clean it up a little bit, and we'll try it again.